This morning I'll be speaking on the work of Indigenous artist Michael Riley. The talk is meant to go for 20 minutes, and at the end of the talk you get an opportunity to ask questions for about 5 minutes, and then I'll invite you to look at the film, although I'm not sure what time the film will be on. Anyway, I think we'll just start. The work of Michael's chosen for the APT consists of three major works on a particular theme that he's been working on for a number of years. The earliest work would be a series of cibachrome prints from the Sacrifice series that he produced a number of years ago. And the second major work following this theme is the Cloud series on this wall, which was produced in 2002. And the third work that in the show is a film titled Empire, which is a 20-minute film, or rather, as he prefers to call it, a soundscape, which relates to these various themes. Now, I'll just tell you about Michael's career as an Indigenous artist. He comes from a country town in New South Wales of Dubbo. His mother, a Gamilaroi Aboriginal woman from that area, and his father was from a neighbouring Aboriginal people called the Wiradjuri people from New South Wales, around that area. He grew up in that town of Dubbo, went to school there. Both his parents went to when they were younger, went to the Aboriginal mission, grew up on the Aboriginal mission at Dubbo, called the Tralbalga mission. And this was in the time when Aboriginal people were living on government missions. And so a lot of his work is informed by his parents' life and informed by the landscape around New South Wales, rural Australia. The cibachrome prints that he produced over here were originally shown in an exhibition to London in 1986 and toured with a group show of Aboriginal artists from the Bamali Aboriginal Artist Cooperative. Also, during that time, the Bamali Aboriginal Artist Cooperative was set up in 1987 in Sydney, and a number of its members, early members, were Aboriginal artists such as Fiona Foley, a Queensland artist. Tracy Moffat was an early Bamali member. Myself, Aboriginal students who had, art students who had gone through Western Art College, decided to form an artist cooperative where they could hang their own works and produce works for the wider public in a commercial sense. And so these artists began running exhibitions and also running exhibitions for other Indigenous artists around the country. Now, Michael studied in fine arts photography as an Aboriginal student and also as a technician at the Sydney College of Arts in the design school. Other members of Bamali, such as people like Brenda Croft, also went through the Sydney College of the Arts in the Fine Arts School of the college. Michael's job as a technician in the photography section gave him, well, as he says, a technical craft and a technical sensibility to work in photography and also in film. Later on in the 80s and early 90s, when he left art school, he worked with the Aboriginal Indigenous Programs Unit at the ABC television in Sydney, and started directing films, Aboriginal films, for the series Blackout, which was screened throughout the 90s on ABC TV. He also directed programs for the SBS multicultural television station, the Indigenous Programs Unit at that time. And also, I think at some stage worked with the Black Film Unit, which Tracy Moffat was also involved in very early. So at that time, the Bamali Cooperative, the actual exhibition space, was housed in a place called Chippendale, which is very close to the Redfern Aboriginal community of Sydney. He and the Eora Art Centre, which is also another Aboriginal-run artists' college at that time. Michael was here yesterday and the day before. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today to do the talk. He had to fly back to Sydney for dialysis. He's on dialysis, but it was very, very nice for him to be here yesterday. And we filmed him talking about his work, which we'll show during the APT in the coming months. Now let me see, what else can I say about the work? Having said that, apart from the three very sombre works that we see in the exhibition, they do run on this theme that he's been working with over the years, where he very subtly is talking about growing up as an Aboriginal person in New South Wales. His parents decided to send him to Sydney to actually become a carpenter's apprentice. So he left a small country town and went to Sydney when he was about 17. And there he didn't end up doing the carpenter's apprentice course. He met a lot of Australian artists at that time who influenced him to apply for art college. And he also met lots of Australian professional artists working in Sydney at that time, at Sydney Uni actually, at the Ten Sheds workshop, where he was working in the dark room there as well. He ended up doing some part of a course, I think at Macquarie Uni, at the Film and TV school there. So when he talks about the film empire that you'll see, and do take the time to see it, he was given a brief by ABC to create an artwork that could be shown on commercial television. And what he did, he worked collaboratively with other artists, and particularly a composer by the name of Anthony Partos, to compose music around these images that he had in mind that come from this series of works. And then they worked also, commissioned the Tasmanian Symphony Orchestra to compose a new piece of music to go with the film. Now, in the film, there's absolutely no dialogue till the very end of the piece, and you'll hear the voice of a Lutheran missionary from the 1930s that was aired on ABC radio in the 50s or the 40s about Aboriginal people in relating to the missions. It's actually a missionary from the Hermannsburg mission. Let me see. What else can I say about his work? He's produced, I think, a lot of people have not heard of his work. He's a very quiet person. He's still the director of the Bamali Cooperative today, which exists in Sydney. I think I'll just point out some of the iconography in the Sacrifice series. Has to do, you'll see very simple elements that are echoed in the film, such as the clouds here. And it's a repeating motif. When I asked him, you know, what's the, why the clouds play so much in his work, and he just simply said that people, and when children look at clouds, you know, they really take the time to see the different forms that are shaping. And also in his country, which is around Dubbo, Moree, that kind of place, where some of the images were shot. The landscape is a very long, vast landscape where you can see the horizon and the cloud formations and the light. He talked about the very strong light in that part of his country, and the very saturated colours, and he was talking about the different sacred sites in Wiradjuri country, which has been had an amount of degradation over the years from cattle industry and farming. And he wanted to express a sense of spirituality within the landscape and point to the fact that apart from missionaries coming into his part of the country and forcing Aboriginal people to live in regimented foreign lifestyle, and he mentioned the fish, like the guppies that are lined up on this paper. It was a way of expressing the way children were living on the mission and had to line up every day and sit down and come and get rations. He mentions the rations that were handed out to people on missions, and points to the elements such as flour, tea and sugar, which is a recurring theme for a lot of Aboriginal people. And he also talks about the spirituality that was being taught from, say, Catholicism, and he wanted to express the spirituality that was already existing in the Aboriginal people living in the area. So the pieces have a very sombre tone to them, but they also, especially with the film, present a very loving portrait of his country that he knows very well. And in the film, you actually see a mountain range that had sacred significance to Wiradjuri people, and the colours of the landscape, which very much look like, say, a watercolour from someone like Namatjira, very, very sombre and very rich tones. Now, what else did I need to say? Well, I think the reason we've included Michael's work, the brief for the APT was to look at an artist's work over a number of years who was working in film and installation. And really, his work over the years have concentrating on this sort of form. I think, well, we hope you enjoy looking at the work. I think I'll finish there and you can ask questions. Does anyone have any questions?
What's the symbolism of the spoons?
Oh, could you use the mic?
Okay. Yeah, what's the symbolism of the spoons?
Right, the symbolism of the spoons relates to drugs, I guess, and also the symbol in the poppies. So he was talking about Aboriginal youth and the different things that Aboriginal youth are dealing with today, so, as a follow-on from the introduced rations like the flour, tea and the sugar. There's a lot of problems with, today we see with dealing with Western society. So that's what that's about. Yes.
Can you talk about the feather at all?
The feathers, yes. In the Cloud series, he's photographed these very delicate images. So here we see the wings of an angel, and then the wings of an eagle, and they're just highlighting these simple elements against the sky. So the feather relates to the boomerang, the Aboriginal, hunting boomerang, and also it relates to the locust, which in that country there are, in the farming industry, I suppose the farmers think of the locust as being a pest. They come into the land and destroy crops, and in fact there are a number of locust plagues around that area, the Western Plains in New South Wales. But in his people's country, the locust was seen as a messenger, a herald of the changing seasons in the country, the number of seasons that are happening in that area. So I think these kinds of elements that he's talking about, here we see the floating cattle, the cow. It's a very heavy dairy industry area out there still today. I mean,
Why is it floating?
why is it floating?
Everything
Well, I think
is
that
about feathers and flight.
everything is in feathers and flight, yes.
And yet you've got the cow.
And yet the cow was floating in the sky. I think it's particularly interesting that there is no horizon line at all. I don't know the answer to why that is, but...
I can make up a theory about the Bible.
Yes.
It would take you out of yourself into the heavens. But
Yes.
the cow, I can't.
I think the interpretation is open to the audience. He says, it's the audience brings their own interpretation to, but knowing that it's by an Indigenous artist, you get these two views.
Could you explain to me the open hand?
The
open hands.
Open hand.
The open hands, of course, the simple images relating to the figure of Christ, and yet the hands of his Christ is black hands, Aboriginal hands. He used a friend of his as a model, and then these hands have the stigmata of Christ in the middle of the hands. The cross, the crucifix against his friend's chest. We see the elements of lilies, and in fact the poppies have been photographed against his friend's chest, against the black skin. The idea of the fish on the parched earth. He's talking about the environment of his country, and at very early, before European contact, his country had many seasons and many changes of environment, and that you get these drought-affected areas today. Yes.
Who's this figure?
This is a gravestone. So we see also over here another gravestone shot against the sky. He's talking about the, I guess, the religion, two views of looking at religion on Aboriginal people.